For most of my adult life, I believed I was one of the lucky ones. You know the type of life people talk about when they say someone has everything figured out. A stable job, a loving wife, and a beautiful child who makes every bad day feel worth it. My name is Daniel Harper. And for 12 years, I believed my marriage was unbreakable. My wife Laura and I met during our second year of college. She was the kind of woman who didn't just enter a room, she filled it with energy. People were naturally drawn to her. Her laugh was loud, genuine, and contagious. I was the opposite. Quiet. Focused. A little awkward in large groups. But somehow, our differences worked perfectly together. Laura once told me that I made her feel calm in a chaotic world. And she made my world feel exciting. We dated for 4 years before getting married. Those years were filled with road trips, late-night conversations, and dreams about the future. We talked about everything. Where we wanted to live, what kind of careers we hoped to have, and how many kids we wanted. Laura always said she wanted 2 children. I said one would already make me the happiest man alive. Eventually we compromised. We would start with 1. Life, however, had its own plans. A year after we got married, Laura became pregnant. I still remember the moment she told me. She walked into the living room holding a small white stick in her hand. At first I didn't understand what it was. Then she smiled, tears already forming in her eyes, and whispered, "You're going to be a dad." That moment changed everything. The day Emily was born. Emily entered our lives on a cold November morning. The hospital room smelled like disinfectant and coffee, and my hands were shaking as I waited outside the delivery room. When the nurse finally came out and told me I could go in, I felt like my heart might explode. Laura looked exhausted but happy. And in her arms was the smallest human being I had ever seen. Emily. She was wrapped in a pink blanket, her tiny face scrunched up as if she was already annoyed with the world. When the nurse placed her in my arms, something inside me shifted. People always say becoming a parent changes you. But until that moment, I never truly understood what that meant. Suddenly every decision I made had a different weight. Every future plan revolved around protecting and caring for this tiny person. And Laura and I promised each other something that day. No matter what happened in life, we would always put our daughter first. For years, it felt like we kept that promise. Our quiet, happy routine. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. I worked at a financial consulting firm while Laura took a part-time marketing job that allowed her to spend more time with Emily. Every morning I would leave the house around 7:30. Laura would be in the kitchen making breakfast while Emily sat at the table coloring pictures. Before leaving, I always kissed both of them goodbye. In the evenings we had dinner together. Sometimes Laura cooked. Sometimes we ordered pizza and watched cartoons with Emily. Weekends were our favorite time. We would go to the park, visit the zoo, or simply stay home and watch movies together under blankets. To anyone looking from the outside, we looked like the perfect family. And maybe, for a while, we really were. But happiness can slowly erode without anyone noticing. And by the time you realize something is wrong, the damage is often already done. The first small changes. The first change was so small that I barely noticed it. Laura started spending more time on her phone. At first it seemed harmless. Everyone checks messages constantly these days. But slowly it became different. She would smile at the screen. Sometimes she would quickly lock the phone when I walked into the room. I remember one evening when Emily and I were watching television. Laura was sitting on the couch texting someone, her face lit up by the glow of the screen. "Who are you talking to?" I asked casually. "Just someone from work," she replied quickly. I didn't think much about it. Trust was never something we struggled with. At least, that's what I believed. The late nights. A few months later, Laura's work schedule started changing. She began staying late at the office. Marketing deadlines. Client meetings. Work dinners. At first, I admired her dedication. But Emily began asking questions. Why is mommy always working? Is she coming home tonight? I would always give the same answer. She's just busy, sweetheart. Emily accepted that explanation. Children trust their parents completely. They assume adults always tell the truth. Sometimes adults take advantage of that trust. The night everything changed. The night I discovered the truth was painfully ordinary. It was a Tuesday evening. Emily had gone upstairs to sleep after I read her favorite bedtime story. Laura had just gotten home from work and went straight to the shower. I was cleaning the kitchen when her phone buzzed on the counter. Normally I would ignore it. But the screen lit up with a message preview. 3 words. I miss you. My stomach tightened. I tried to convince myself it meant nothing. Maybe a friend. Maybe a coworker joking around. Then another message appeared. Last night was incredible. My heart started pounding. Slowly, I picked up the phone. Part of me hoped there was a simple explanation. But when I opened the conversation, my entire world collapsed. Dozens of messages. Flirtation. Plans to meet. Hotel reservations. Photos. And words meant for lovers. When Laura walked into the kitchen and saw the phone in my hands, her face turned white. Neither of us spoke. Finally, I asked the question that would end our marriage. Who is he? When Laura saw her phone in my hands, the look on her face told me everything before she even spoke. Shock. Fear. And something else I had never seen in her eyes before. Guilt. For several seconds, neither of us said a word. The kitchen felt painfully silent except for the quiet hum of the refrigerator. I slowly placed the phone on the counter between us. Who is he? I asked again. My voice was calm, but inside my chest my heart felt like it was trying to break through my ribs. Laura looked down at the floor. Her shoulders trembled slightly. I didn't want you to find out like this, she whispered. Those words alone confirmed what I already knew. How long? I asked. She hesitated for several seconds. Then she quietly said something that felt like a hammer striking my chest. 8 months. 8 months. 8 months of lies. 8 months of pretending our marriage was normal. 8 months of kissing me goodbye every morning while secretly living another life. I leaned against the kitchen counter because suddenly my legs felt weak. Does he know about me? I asked. Laura nodded slowly. Yes. And Emily? This time she didn't answer. But her silence told me everything. My daughter. Our daughter. Laura had been willing to risk destroying her family for another man. The man who destroyed my marriage. Who is he? I asked quietly. Laura wiped tears from her face. His name is Mark. Someone from work? She nodded. He joined the company last year. I let out a slow breath. So every late meeting, every work dinner, that was really time with him. Laura didn't argue. She didn't deny it. She simply sat there crying. The strangest part was that I didn't feel anger at that moment. I felt something worse. Emptiness. The woman sitting in front of me suddenly felt like a stranger. The person I had shared my life with for over a decade was gone. Replaced by someone I didn't recognize. The question that hurt the most. Finally, I asked the question that had been sitting in my mind since I read those messages. Why? Laura looked up at me. Her eyes were red and swollen. I don't know how it started, she said quietly. That's not an answer. She took a shaky breath. I felt lonely. The word hit me like a slap. Lonely? I repeated. Yes. You live in the same house as me and our daughter. How exactly were you lonely? Laura hesitated. Then she said something that hurt more than the affair itself. You were always working. I stared at her in disbelief. I was working to support this family. I know, she said quickly. But Mark, he listened to me. He made me feel noticed again. Noticed. The word echoed in my mind. For years I had worked long hours so Laura could have a comfortable life. So Emily could grow up without worrying about money. And somehow that effort had turned into neglect in Laura's eyes. The longest night of my life. That night neither of us slept. Laura tried to apologize. Over and over again. I made a mistake. I ended it. I'll do anything to fix this. But every apology felt empty. Because the truth was simple. She hadn't made one mistake. She had made hundreds. Every message. Every meeting. Every lie. Each one was a choice. Around 3 a.m. I walked upstairs to check on Emily. She was sleeping peacefully in her bed, hugging her stuffed bear. For a moment I just stood in the doorway watching her breathe. Completely unaware that her world was about to change forever. I quietly closed the door and walked back downstairs. Laura was sitting on the couch crying. I looked at her and said the words that ended our marriage. I can't do this anymore. The weeks that followed. The weeks after that night were a blur. Laura begged me not to leave. She promised to cut all contact with Mark. She said the affair meant nothing. But those words only made things worse. If it meant nothing, why risk everything? Why destroy our family for something meaningless? Eventually we started sleeping in separate rooms. Emily noticed the tension immediately. Children always do. One evening she asked Laura and me why we weren't talking to each other. Neither of us knew how to answer. How do you explain betrayal to a 6-year-old child? The conversation with Emily. One night Emily walked into the living room while I was sitting alone on the couch. Daddy? Yes, sweetheart? Are you mad at Mommy? The question caught me off guard. I forced a small smile. Why do you ask that? You two don't laugh together anymore. My chest tightened. Children notice everything. Even the things adults try to hide. Sometimes grown-ups have problems, I said carefully. But we still love you very much. Emily nodded slowly. Then she asked something that broke my heart. Did I do something wrong? I immediately pulled her into my arms. No, I said firmly. Never think that. None of this is your fault. She hugged me tightly. I just want us to be happy again. I held her close, wishing I could promise something I wasn't sure was possible anymore. The decision that changed our lives. 2 weeks later I contacted a lawyer. Filing for divorce felt like admitting defeat. But staying in a broken marriage would have been worse. Laura cried when she received the papers. She begged me one last time to reconsider. We can go to counseling, she said. We can fix this. But deep down I knew something important. Trust, once shattered, never returns in the same form. And without trust, a marriage becomes a prison instead of a partnership. So I continued with the process. Even though it meant breaking apart the life we had built together. The beginning of the end. Divorce is not a single moment. It's a slow process filled with paperwork, legal meetings, and emotional exhaustion. The hardest part wasn't dealing with lawyers. It was watching Emily slowly realize that her parents were no longer going to live together. One night she asked the question I had been dreading. Daddy, are you and Mommy getting divorced? I took a deep breath. Yes, sweetheart. She looked down at the floor. Does that mean one of you is leaving? I nodded slowly. Yes. Emily was quiet for several seconds. Then she asked something that shattered my heart. Did mommy stop loving us? I hugged her tightly. No, I said softly. Sometimes adults make mistakes that hurt the people they love. But deep down I knew something painful. Some mistakes change everything forever.